Morning guys, Moon here. Today we're taking the third and final look at the Rush Echoes overview and tier list. Today with the utility echoes. If there's a specific utility echo you like very much, let me know down in the comments why it is your favorite one. So let's take a look at the overview. We are talking about Broodmother S'ilreth, Deposed King, Emissary of Ruin, Equilibrium, Kindled Heartwood, Kolaar the Beastmaster, Marrow, Slyv'r, the first Trickster, and Wormwood. So without further breaks, let's dive right into it. First of all, let's take a look at the Broodmother S'ilreth. Broodmother S'ilreth triggers by losing 40% of your guard break meter, then grants a damage shield equal to 30% of your total life that reduces or that takes damage you would take otherwise and reduces your guard break damage by a noticeable amount. This shield stays active until you are either guard broken or the shield is fully depleted, but can no longer be active than 1 minute. Though the echo does have an extremely long cooldown, so I'm not sure if you really want to use it. While it is technically very good, the cooldown just is too long to justify it, but yeah. I mean, maybe in the hardcore variation later on, but in normal play I think the cooldown is just too long. For the second echo, the Deposed King. It triggers on killing an enemy with a 20% chance and then restores 15% of your maximum HP over 6 seconds. This is extremely unreliable and the heal isn't even good. So you're getting like 2.5% HP per second over 6 seconds, which is not very good compared to other heal rush echoes. Also, 20% chance when you're killing an enemy is just not working against bosses, and even while clearing it's just too unreliable. If it had a 5 or 10 second cooldown maybe, but the cooldown is just too long to justify it again. Also, the Deposed King is an echo that you get in the third area, where you just get it from the Deposed King event, which is like a tree which you have to feed with a crown. You have to kill enemies and stuff. But then third, Emissary of Ruin. It triggers by dodge attacking during combat, which is a pretty good trigger because usually you don't really do that all that much. Then it empowers all your heavy attacks to knock back enemies. This does not work on bosses, I think. And it has okayish utility against bigger groups or against normal enemies, but usually I'd say it is not really needed against normal enemies. So while it might be useful on some occasions, I do generally think it's not that great either. For the fourth echo, Equilibrium. Equilibrium is achieved, or is granted by an event early on in the first couple of Lost Zones. It is triggered by equipping and grants 30 stamina. It is very, very useful. These 30 stamina always are there. It has no cooldown or something. It just makes working with your stamina a lot easier. I find myself putting in it most of my builds because I just very, very much like having more stamina for dodging, for blocking, for whatever you needed right now, for jumping. I'm doing a lot of bunny hopping, so there it is very useful as well, just to traverse areas more quickly. So I do very much like it. Then we've got the Kindled Heartwood. The Kindled Heartwood triggers by falling below 35% HP. It roots nearby enemies. This does not CC bosses, but hitting rooted enemies, and this does include bosses even though they are not CC'd, heals you for 3% per hit for up to 12 seconds. And there is no limit on this, so multi-hitting and fast hitting weapons like daggers are extremely effective here. I'd say Kindled Heartwood is by far the best healing echo, and actually pretty damn good if you can justify falling below 35% HP without dying, which can be tricky, but generally a very, very strong echo here, I think. Then we've got the Kolaar the Beastmaster, one I've talked about earlier. In the ability power section, it's triggered by landing a critical strike, and then it does either hit for weapon power, ability power, or increases your crit ratings. The damage ratios are extremely good, even though they are not displayed on the echo because it would just be too much text, I guess. But The increased crit rating buff also is very, very good. And it's just an extremely good echo on hybrid builds in general. In hybrids and crit builds would very, very much like this echo. Then Echo 7, Marrow. Marrow is the beer from, not from Kolaar, but from Atturach. So when you're looking through the mythic hunts and are like, okay, where is Marrow? It's actually Atturach. You can get both echoes there. It's triggered by breaking an enemy's guard and grants a very, very strong crit rating and crit power buff for 12 seconds. Though a lot of crit builds have some difficulties with break damage, so it might be difficult to actually get the buff. So if you want to utilize Marrow, you might have to put another like break echo or two into your build to actually break the enemy. Though when you do get it, it has a very low cooldown because I think it is 30 seconds actually start counting when the buff is granted to you. So you have 12 seconds while the buff is active. That does reduce the cooldown already. So that is very, very potent. Then we have Slyv'r. Slyv'r again has been talked about in the weapon power section. So it is triggered by dodging in combat. Mostly if you want to know the exacts, because in the weapon power echo video I talked very, very much about Slyv'r, so I would advise to look further there. They just say the invisibility can be useful in some fights, but generally a very, very good echo in weapon power focused builds. For the next one, we have the first highly covered echo already again. It's triggered by double jumping, grants a very, very good buff. Again, the cooldown works while the 15 seconds buff is active, so actually not as long cooldown as it seems. Still very, very good echo. Then we have the Trickster. The Trickster is triggered by dodging in combat and then randomly applies a debuff to up to 4 enemies. The debuff again is random. It applies like up to 4 debuffs from weapon power, ability power, resilience or break power. And I found this to be like the most unreliable echo there is. Like you don't know how many enemies you're debuffing, you don't know with what you are debuffing them, but the cooldown is very low. But I don't know, it's just too unreliable. It's very, very random and oftentimes just doesn't work well. So yeah, I don't think it's worth at all. Last but not least, Wormwood. Wormwood is triggered by landing a heavy slam attack and then creates a healing area that hits all allies within it for 12 seconds. Generally, it is a decent heal with a very reliable trigger because you can heavy slam attack with a lot of combos very quickly, like with the greatswords or other heavy weapons. You can cancel your jump instantly with a jump attack, which instantly triggers the echo. It is a very good trigger again, but the cooldown still is very, very long and the healing is okayish, but the area isn't all that huge. But it might be a good option for some if you're like really focusing on the healing part of, well, echoes. Generally, I would the other one, the Heartwood one, I think. It's just, I think, a little bit better. And then let's take a look at my tier list from S to D. In the S tier, we have Equilibrium, Marrow, and Slyv'r. Slyv'r is just one of the best weapon power echoes. Then we have Marrow, very strong in the right circumstances. Wouldn't use it all the time, but if every build was a crit build, or yeah, if every build was a crit build, I'd put it into S+. Then we have Equilibrium, very strong echo as well. I just like the utility of it. Pretty much, you know, my most used echo across all my builds, I think. And we've got the A tier with the first, Kindled Heartwood and Kolaar the Beastmaster. Just very, very reliable and strong utility in the right circumstances. So all of these deserve their A tier. They're just good and oftentimes very useful echoes. Then we've got the B tier with the Wormwood. Good in the right circumstances, but just falls behind Kindled Heartwood most of the time. For C tier, we have Broodmother and Emissary of Ruin. Emissary of Ruin just isn't worth it, I think, because the knockback isn't good enough. Oftentimes it can even screw you over by hitting a ranged enemy further away from you, which just let them shoot you again. Broodmother I would have put into a better tier, maybe B or A even, if the cooldown was like half of what it is, but this way it's just too long in a normal game scenario. For hardcore, maybe we put her down a couple of tiers, or up a couple of tiers, but we don't know yet, so we will see. And we've got the Deposed King and the Trickster in the D tier. I don't want to talk about them. They are terrible, terrible, terrible. So Thanks for watching. If you want to create your own tier list, I will put the link down in the comments. I say thanks for watching and see you in the next one.